If we can pack an article's worth of information in merely an image and then make it funny. When you make it funny, their guard goes down. And all of a sudden, you're influencing hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions.
Internet memes are among the most powerful, recognizable, and influential images of our era. Simple, easily absorbed, momentarily funny. Anyone using social media, and that's around 4 billion people, will probably be familiar with images like this, and this. As the internet has become central to the way we communicate, political parties and groups of all stripes have jumped on the meme bandwagon. But there's a dark side. Over the past few years, memes have become one of the primary vehicles by which the global far right has spread its ideas and recruited new followers.
What is your little frog?
It's Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
How did this happen? How did a bunch of goofy online images become some of the key tools of global fascism? How did an innocent drawing of a frog infiltrate world politics? My name's Tim Hume, and I cover the far right for Vice World News.
The propaganda barrage, to confuse, to make them lose faith, to divide and conquer.
Extremist political ideologies have always invested heavily in propaganda, from racist American films like Birth of a Nation, which glorified the Ku Klux Klan in 1915, to the rise of Italian fascism, and particularly in Hitler's Germany. Far-right ideologues have dedicated huge resources to producing posters, magazines and billboards to occupy public space and the public imagination.
They had a complete army, 20,000 men, devoted to propaganda. Because the Nazis were so good at creating their imagery of themselves, history sees them through the prism of their own self-definition.
The most famous trials were those held in Nuremberg. 21 were found guilty and 10 were executed.
After World War II and the Holocaust, it became somewhat less socially acceptable to be a raging racist.
It made things like fascism and specifically eugenics, which had previously been thought of as quite trendy theories, it made them really repulsive to lots and lots of people.
The rise of the internet, however, offered a new medium that allowed users to cloak their racist ideas in a heavily coded veneer of irony, the meme.
I'm a proud ethnic Kyrgyzstani. For centuries, my people bled under Normie oppression. It is time to strike back. I hereby declare a meme jihad on all normies.
The main difference between 1930s Nazi propaganda and what internet message boards like 8chan and Reddit produce is that online memes tend to work by appropriating random and benign images from popular culture, then repeating them over and over until they take on the feeling of an inside joke. Posters get the buzz of feeling controversial and transgressive, combined with the thrill of feeling part of an exclusive and clever in-group. And if anyone does get really upset, they can always claim it was all just a big, ironic joke.
Irony is huge on the far right because it gives far-right groups this air of plausible deniability when the press or law enforcement come calling.
They can always say it was a joke. And so what they do is they produce these memes dripping with irony and sarcasm. And you really don't know what to believe. So you'll have Hitler serving McDonald's at a drive-thru. You will have a picture of Auschwitz with the words not Arbeit macht frei, but actually with the left can't mean. Or you will have pictures of German soldiers in World War II, and it would say celebrating diversity. All the soldiers in the picture would be non-white.
Quite a lot of the time, far-right movements will use memes to code and cloak more insidious ideologies and terminology under the guise of humour. And so it allows people to share and comment on this imagery and say that they might not have known that it had this insidious meaning, or say that it was just a joke, completely dismissing the underlying motivations of the image.
Obviously, the other great revolution of the internet is that to create this sort of racist content, you don't need a propaganda army of 20,000 photographers and journalists. The stuff can be churned out by one kid in their bedroom, then quickly spread around the world by suburban boomers on Facebook who may or may not even understand the original message board joke, but can still be influenced by its ideology.
The internet also is wickedly good at exploiting filter bubbles. And so you congregate with people of your own tribe and they dig each other deeper into their psychological ditches.
Probably the most famous example of just how far this can go is Pepe the Frog.
A popular cartoon character turned internet meme, Pepe the Frog, has been added to the Anti-Defamation League's database of hate symbols. In a press release, the organization wrote the character had been, quote, used by haters on social media to suggest racist, anti-Semitic, or other bigoted notions as a hate symbol.
Originally created by the cartoonist Matt Fury, Pepe had nothing to do with politics until right-wing shitposters decided to give him a dismissive, self-satisfied smirk and appropriated the character in a nudge-nudge, wink-wink effort to own the libs and harass minorities, women, and journalists.
The appropriation of symbols and turning them into far-right symbols has always been done. The swastika was a Buddhist symbol. Pepe the Frog is a good example by appropriating his face to all these far-right statements and have Pepe smirking. And the point about Pepe is that he does smirk. It is the adolescent smirk, taking a huge pleasure out of norm violation.
Now, this was one thing when it was just a bunch of juvenile attention seekers using frog pics to impress each other on message boards. But then Donald Trump posted a pic of himself as Pepe, and the frog leaped into mainstream stardom, much to the delight of the online far right.
Donald Trump Jr., for example, he put this image on his Instagram account. It's a meme of Pepe. And for those of you who don't know, Pepe is a white nationalist symbol.
It turns out that ridiculous pics on the internet could impact global politics. Another example of this online interplay of irony and nationalism is the OK hand signal. This began as a simple gesture used by scuba divers to signal they were okay while underwater. But in the mid-2010s, users of 4chan cooked up a plan to troll the mainstream media into reporting that the symbol was actually a hidden white nationalist code.
Kelly Donahue has been the target of a social media firestorm after a gesture he made at the beginning of Tuesday's episode.
Now, he calls it a terrible misunderstanding.
In a response, Donahue says, I absolutely unequivocally condemn white supremacy and racism of any kind.
What were they thinking? Cadets and midshipmen flashed a sign that to most people simply means okay, but has been classified as a hate symbol by the Anti-Defamation League.
But the joke ended up being so successful that many among the far right did actually adopt the symbol.
They wanted to bamboozle the media and troll everyone by making this a white nationalist symbol. And they did this by saying that it looked like a W and a P for white power. Sure enough, as it normally happens when something is born on 4chan, white nationalists did end up using the OK hand sign. And now you have groups like the Proud Boys who use it as one of their main symbols. And then when people ask them, hey, isn't that a white nationalist symbol? They go, come on, you guys are crazy liberals.
I'm a Western chauvinist. I'm a Western chauvinist!
It shows this morphing of a meme from joke to not a joke to totally confusing to the point where the media doesn't cover it anymore.
We are gay! We are gay! We are gay!
And this is another example of the insidious power of the meme. It's one thing to get morally outraged over pictures of Auschwitz or immigrants being kept in cages, but the minute any critic finds himself having to publicly condemn a cartoon frog, it's the critic who could end up looking faintly ridiculous.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
This is exactly the trap that Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign fell into in 2016, when an article posted on her website sought to explain who Pepe was and his ties to white nationalists. In August 2017, a huge far-right rally took place in Charlottesville, at which a counter-demonstrator was murdered by a white nationalist.
They just literally came down the street at 80 miles per hour to fucking hit us just now. I had to jump out of the way. I almost got hit by the car my fucking self.
Unite the Right happens, and all of a sudden you had the same sarcastic trolling groups. You had members of the Proud Boys out there, and you had members of all these different far-right factions, but they were sitting next to people who said, we aren't going to tiptoe around this symbology anymore.
You will not replace us! You will not replace us!
And so you had swastikas, and you had SS symbols, you had just straight up neo-Nazis marching alongside memes.
Our streets! Our streets!
Fast forward to 2019, where memeified violence reached terrifying new heights when the white nationalist Brenton Tarrant murdered 51 people at 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand.
This is one of New Zealand's darkest days.
The 28-year-old Brenton Tarrant didn't enter a verbal plea, but he did send a clear message in the courtroom. A white power hand sign that's often used to troll or just upset liberals.
Tarrant announced the beginning of his attack by posting a meme on 8chan before he live-streamed his mass murder on Facebook. The comment reactions to it were a real-time series of in-jokey shitposts, turning mass killing into just another meme to be shared. Even his weapons, emblazoned with famous battles in history between Christians and Muslims, became a meme. But for all that veneer of modern technology, the actual ideology that Tarrant followed was pretty old-fashioned. And this is one of the key things to remember about the far-right use of memes. Though they like to paint themselves as doing something new, subversive, and clever, the actual ideas they spread are largely the same tired conspiracy theories about a supposed great replacement of white people that have been doing the rounds for decades.
Now, today what we have is the notion of the great replacement. In other words, the idea that Islam specifically is actually an existential threat to Europe. This is what the Nazis did with the Jews, that the Jews were somehow a threat to German culture and life.
All this is proving to be a major challenge for the big tech social media companies. How are they supposed to respond to people posting dumb, semi-ironic pictures online without either limiting free speech or abetting extremist violence?
Memes are used in a way to obfuscate hateful ideology and imagery to the point where if a platform like Twitter or TikTok creates a hate speech policy and says you can't put imagery of, say, lynchings on TikTok anymore, the people that make memes are going to immediately work to find the loophole there.
They will always be complete masters of the technology. So all attempts to cut them down and so forth, they'll always find a technological way of outsmarting that.
The future of memes, though, is unpredictable. In 2020, protesters against growing Chinese authoritarianism in Hong Kong, who had no idea about Pepe the Frog's racist baggage, reappropriated Pepe as a symbol of freedom, openness, and unity. But what is certain is that the DIY nature of social media content has been weaponized to spread far-right propaganda faster and further than ever. The racist ideas that these memes propagate may be older than all of our grandparents, but the toxic mix of irony, disinformation, and cartoonified violence they spread online has led to new waves of hate, terrorism, and mass murder in the real world.
Whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on 4chan, whether you're on freaking TikTok, you are 1 to 2 clicks away from abhorrent imagery celebrating mass shootings and Nazis and lynchings on any site that you go to. I think memes are going to a very dark place unless we are able to educate people about the imagery they're seeing. We're going to see a lot more people indoctrinated, and we're going to see a lot of hateful ideology normalized.